Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Tyranny with me, Bring It On. Off camera, I did equip quick items on all my party members just to clear out my inventory a little bit. And I looked at my reputation. We almost have this passive unlocked through the Disfavored. Stand together, stand tall. Every 3 seconds gives +1 resolve to everyone in a 3-meter radius. Sounds pretty good. Scarlet Chorus is +5 hit precision on targets below 35% health. So all these like first passives seem really good. Also, I looked at Verses. Verse now almost fears us as much as she likes us, and we did unlock Fury's Rage. I project intense flames towards Verse, which she catches on her blades and spins into an aura of breathing flames around her. Nearby foes take burn damage from the flames while they last. And we also have a new ability with Barik. Iron Tolling. Barik and the Fatebinder both bang on their shields and armor, harassing an enemy. The target is compelled to attack Barik for a short time, while the Fatebinder's mocking gestures leave the enemy confused and off guard. The foe loses all ability to parry and dodge until they recover their senses. Oh, okay, minus 1000 parry and dodge for 15 seconds. Well, that's really good. Anyway, I do want to check something with Verse
service, Fatebinder.
Before we talk to Barik.
What do you need? You already know that I memorize.
Alright, nothing new. But I did see...
At your service. What do you need?
I want to ask about our travels.
What did you have in mind?
What do you think of our present circumstances? Well, there's an edict hanging over our heads. As far as I'm concerned, the incompetence of the Disfavored got us into this mess. And it'll take the fury of the Scarlet Chorus to get us out of it. In other words, nothing ever changes. And what do you think of our travel companions? Anyone in particular? What do you think of Barik? Well, I'll give him some due credit. He's more complicated than he looks. He's so an intolerant and unapologetic bastard. That's more his business than mine. Okay,
Go
cool.
ahead, Fatebinder.
Like I can actually ask about other companions. Alright, well let's get to know Barik.
You look as if you have something on your mind. By all means.
Placing his weapon to his side, Barik salutes you. The joints of his armor groan in protest.
What can I do for you?
I'd like to know more about you. I'm the line your enemies cannot cross. All other details are meaningless. But I suspect you have some thirst for details, so ask away. Did you seek the trade of war, or did it find you? Both, I suppose. I knew fighting was in my blood, and the Disfavored offered me a chance to use my skills to bring peace. Otherwise, I'd have wound up some brigand, or an enforcer to a crooked merchant. Barik taps his scabbard, looking away in thought. You think Ashe and his legion bring peace? That's cute, but doesn't hold water from where I'm standing, big guy. I've seen them spill as much blood as any chorus gang. You've clearly been too busy sacking villages and stealing crops to notice how a proper army conducts a war. We sow order, not discord. See, I don't agree with this statement in its entirety. I don't think the Scarlet Chorus is too chaotic to recognize order. They know what order is. But I do think that they are more chaotic than the Disfavored. Oh, also, I did increase the size of the font. Because the text is so close together. Sometimes I have a hard time finding the next line. Also, it might make it easier for you guys to read along if you want to. Yeah, I'm gonna go, Barik is right. Actually, I'm not gonna say anything. Say nothing. Enough of this. You're making us look foolish before the Fatebinder. May I continue my story, or do you plan on interrupting again? Barik waits until Verse makes a rude, dismissive wave before continuing. The Disfavored needed recruits in anticipation of the march south. They offered to care for my mother and brother as long as I stayed with the Legion, which is a better guarantee than you'll find anywhere else. I was an elite fighter as far as most were concerned, though still green by Disfavored standards. Luckily for everyone, my skills improved under the Iron Marshal's rigorous training. Tell me about your name. Barik is a shortening of my northern surname, which has been passed down through the generations since Graven Ashe assembled his army. I go by it because I wear it with pride. The proper form is Barikonin. Oh, cool. Beyond its age and association with the General's Legion, The name of Barik has no great titles or associations. I hold no claim to a great house or legacy, save for the Disfavored. They're all the kin I need. And what's the story with your armor?
It is a symbol of Kyros' will, one that I am not likely to forget. I found this armor. Perhaps it would be better to say that it found me during the Edict of Storms.
I proclaimed the edict. Where were you when it struck? I had taken to battle, knowing full well that the edict was approaching, and the people of Stalwart were prepared. In spite of every setback, my sense of duty compelled me to march on the stronghold in the heart of the realm. You were chosen to pronounce the Edict of Storms that devastated much of the realm of Stalwart. Before delivering the edict, you warned the Stalwart defenders off its imminent arrival. Did I say wanted? You warned the Stalwart defenders of its imminent arrival. Your desperate effort was intended to secure their surrender, but you managed to spare many lives in the process. Our march was a hasty one. A cohort of disfavored soldiers vanished in the second year of the war. Among them, the daughter of Graven Ashe. After a long silence, we learned that she was held in the fortress of Sentinel Stand. So I wonder if his response, if I hadn't sent that forewarning of the edict, if his response would have been different, and he wouldn't have known the edict was coming, and he would have been taken by surprise. I wonder if that would change the dynamic between the two of us a little bit. Either way, go on. As we surrounded the citadel, I heard the opening peals of thunder, as did the scout I was busy trying to kill. When the winds hit like an avalanche, jeez. Many of us begged Kyros for deliverance. What else were we to do? The winds knocked the legs of our offensive out from under us. All the decorated soldiers I brought to the battle were swept up and dashed to pieces, their armor and bodies mixing with the dirt of a tornado that spun in maddening revolutions. A piece of the citadel wall broke off and nearly crushed my skull. I'll remember a few scattered moments from the storm, like the flying bits of bronze and iron cutting my flesh, the severed limbs of fallen soldiers tumbling through the air. Eventually I woke up, thinking myself trapped under rubble. When I rose and felt like I was buckling under my own weight, that's when I realized I was stuck, right and truly stuck, inside this heap of scrap. It looks like pretty solid protection. That would be an understatement. If only it protected me from foolish questions. Barik regards you in such a way that you can tell he's rolling his eyes. A forlorn sigh escapes his helmet. Do you handle your own repairs? I try to keep the surface oiled to slow the spreading rust, and I bend the plates from time to time. But repairs, maintenance, no. If you have any ideas of how to better maintain this situation, I'm open to discussing them. Alright, back to my questions about you. By all means, Fatebinder. As with all disfavored, I assume you grew up in the Northern Empire. That's right. I grew up in Battle's Rest, then trained at Fort Resolution before they marched me out to support the second cohort. I hope to spend my rusting years in, Fretton Shores. Unless, of course, I die in glorious battle, which would be preferable. My mother is good with the soil, my father with rings. He spends much of his time away on one merchant's errand or another. Still, I'm lucky to say they're both alive. Let us speak of something else, as you like. Tell me about the Disfavored. We're the Iron Legion, the warrior elite of Kyros' fighting force. I could easily lose count of the hours extolling our glories. What is it you'd like to know? Have you fought in any notable battles? I served in Stalwart for the better part of a year. I faced the enemy everywhere from Coral Run to Sentinel Stand. I lost count of the battles. Seems like we fought every other day. A sigh echoes in the cavern of his helm. Some of our best victories took place there, fighting an enemy worthy of our iron. But we were not successful enough to please the Overlord, and the final intervention was harsh on us all. Barik takes in a deep breath, his arms folding as his posture stiffens. I had an unusual view of the Edict of Storms. Kyros' judgment left its mark on me. Yet considering how we fought at Stalwart, with the skill and honor of legend, only the Edict is remembered. A shame. Tell me about Graven Ashe. Graven Ashe is the general of the Disfavored, a veteran of centuries of battle, and an archon without peer. I'd follow him to the void and back without question. Barik swings his arm in salute. How did he come to serve Kyros? Before the uniting of the Northern Empire, Graven Ashe served as a warlord in the service of one of the local kings that defied Kyros' rule. Incredible as it may seem, Ashe stood against Kyros' rule. Though his army was dismantled by Kyros' overwhelming numbers, Ashe's forces performed admirably. It was said that he and his troops claimed 70 and 7 lives for each of their own. Kyros took an interest in the military genius that bloodied his army. Graven Ashe was summoned to a conclave of archons, and though he was sent in chains, he left as an archon, having been granted a position of power in Kyros' great host of war. Thus the Disfavored were born. All of us today trace our line back to those warriors that impressed Kyros with their will and tenacity. The only difference is now we fight on the winning side. Though the general seldom speaks of it, I know that Ashe humbled himself in order to spare his troops the brunt of Kyros' punishment. His loyalty to the old blood of the North is beyond question. I made the right choice to save his troops. And he would make it again to save any of us. There's never been a more devoted and attentive leader. Barik makes a proud fist and steps to a salute with a forceful clatter of pots and pans. What else do you know of his past? I follow him into battle. I'm not his personal scribe. If I did know more of him, it would not be my place to say. Barik takes a half step back, folding his arms across his chest. As an archon, what magic does he wield? Ashe works his magic through us, his soldiers. When we do battle, Ashe seems to know the events even before our runners have given word. Most importantly, though, he protects us. It's a bit tricky to explain unless you've experienced it. I can think of countless times I've been struck by a spear or hit with an axe, even run through with an arrow, and in each of those moments, the pain and injury just cease to be. None of us knows how he does it, or how he can sense that we're in danger and intervene from afar, but I suppose that's why he's an archon. What he does probably wouldn't make sense to someone like me. And how do you feel about Graven Ashe? How do I feel about him? Archon Ashe is the bravest, warmest, most compassionate general who ever lived. He's a living icon of leadership and courage. Barik tilts his head slightly to the side, as far as the suit's limited range of motion permits. Ashe is a soldier, but he doesn't kill for sport. A leader, but he doesn't issue commands to hear himself talk. He demands discipline and sober conduct of his troops, and I applaud such standards. Alright, back to my questions about the Disfavored. Go on, I'm listening. Hi, what can you tell me of your time in the Legion? I joined the Legion 3 years before the conquest of the Tiers began. Though handy with a few weapons, my size made me the perfect addition to a phalanx. I served with the Stone Shields ever since. Proud to say I've stood front row, right corner, in over a dozen battles. That's been my place ever since the Iron Marshal gave me the assignment. The Bastard City. Whoops. The Bastard City, the Gates of Judgment, Vendrian Pass, Ocken's Ring, a quick tour in Barris and Chains, and then Stalwart. I spent a long time in Stalwart. Lost a lot of friends there. What are the other Disfavored lieutenants? They're Graven Ashe's most trusted officers and warriors from the Iron Guard. Between Ashe's arcane powers of command and his cadre of gifted leaders, there is little confusion or chaos in the ranks. Tell of the one they call Iron Marshal. She takes it upon herself to train and harden our greener recruits. Not only that, she has a keen eye for talent and how to foster it for leadership. She is the youngest member of the Iron Guard. Her family line served the Disfavored back before Ashe bowed to Kyros. Say what you will of how many seasons she's weathered. Her lineage is impressive beyond measure. What of Karen's disciple, Radix? An Earthshaker who swore service to Karen a few years before the conquest. Since Karen is gone, the cult now follows Radix. Unlike his Archon, he at least knows how to follow orders. To his credit, Radix seems to appreciate the honor of fighting alongside the Disfavored. Karen was always peeved to be invited into glory. The mages seem a necessary complication. They're insubordinate and can't lug their own supplies, but would not want to go to war without their spells of Tremor and Leaping Stones. And what of the Scoutmaster Marek? Marek is a devoted leader, and Ashe seems to hold his council in high regard. Both set their troops ahead of themselves, which I'm sure which I'm sure is why they work so well together. He's no magician, but he does share a special connection to his warband, and they're entrusted with the most important scouting assignments. They say he can see what his scouts see, hear what they hear. And what of the veteran warrior Veramis? See, I don't know how I know these two people. He is the finest of us, second only to Ashe. Veramis is an avocatus, a soldier who lived to see the end of his term of service. It's rare for anyone to survive that long, much less willingly return. These days he lends his tactical expertise to Graven Ashe, though by all rights he should be enjoying his twilight years in a seat of honor and dignity. Back to my question about the Disfavored. Why didn't the Legion prevent uprising at Vendrian's Well? I think that's a question you ought to ask the Scarlet Chorus. They too were charged with ensuring the locals remained vanquished and unarmed. Barik lurches forward as he speaks, iron plates grinding under his motion. I would say the Vendrian Guard are really the only guilty party. It was their rebellion after all. That is a supposition unworthy of you, Fatebinder. The tears are but children before Kyros. We don't blame them for their ignorance, but the responsibility to set them straight is ours alone. What more can you tell me of the Legion? The Disfavored accept only the finest warriors. We're all volunteers and soldiers by trade, not farmers and fishmongers pressed into service. There's a century of tradition, honor, and tactical mastery in our ranks. We don't let just anyone into the Legion. Only Northmen of character and prowess are welcome. And what if a capable Tiersman wished to join? We would not recruit even a champion of the Tiersmen. Each soldier in the Legion is tied by blood and fealty to those that stood with Graven Ashe during the coming of Kyros. That is part of who we are, and that will never change. Now what about me? What if I wish to join? A charming sentiment, good Fatebinder, but no. You are sworn to another Archon. Your loyalty would be suspect. Alright, that's fair. So why is the Legion called the Disfavored? It is a name born in shame, now worn in honor. After Graven Ashe stood against Kyros, he was forced to give up much. His allegiance, his pride, in the name of his vaunted army. And what was the Legion originally called? The name has been forgotten by all save Ashe and Kyros. It is considered bad form to bring up the topic. Since you didn't know any better, I'll say this much. Disfavored is the only name by which one needs to know us. Let's speak of something else. Previous questions. Alright, I have some questions about the Scarlet Chorus. Our allies do not share the Disfavored sense of honor and discipline. The Chorus will trust any criminal, rapist, or half-wit with a truncheon or a blade. What would you like to know about the Scarlet Chorus? What do you know of the voices of Nerat? The Archon of Secrets? All I know are rumors, hearsay, speculation, but that's as much as anyone knows of the voices. Some accounts tell that he's actually dead, and the Overlord has trapped the minds of his foes in the same body to torture them all. As likely an explanation as any I've heard. In truth, I know little of the voices, and have reason to suspect almost anything about him could be true. You could tell me his tears turn cheese back into milk. It would seem more sensible to believe you than not. Do you know anything about, or anything of his powers? I am no scholar of sorcery, but as I understand it, the voice of Nerat is a thief of minds. They say he can swipe your thoughts and make them his own. I don't know how it works. When I recruited into the Disfavored, the Iron Marshal told me never to take an audience with the voices if I didn't have a witness on hand. Do you think him disloyal? I really shouldn't comment on such matters. Barik looks ahead blankly, and then clears his throat. I heard his tears can turn cheese into milk. That's very amusing, Fatebinder. What do you know of his associate, the Archon Siren? Siren is the Archon of Song, and one of the youngest of her rank. She can influence human emotion with her voice alone. The voices may be the conductor of the chorus, but I'd argue Siren is their best weapon. The voices put her talent to good use. He had her singing a song up and down the coast, and the Tiersmen defected to the chorus in droves. Back to my questions about the Scarlet Chorus, by all means. What can you tell me about their troops and tactics? Tactics? These are the first I've heard of them. The Chorus is more of an irregular mob than a proper army. Still, it's a well-armed mob. They even have a few proper warriors and magicians in their pitiful excuse for ranks. What do you know of their warriors? Most Chorus rats are untrained peasants, handed a knife or a pitchfork. It doesn't take much to qualify you for the front lines. One only needs a beating heart, and even then the Chorus could make do. Of course, not everyone in the Chorus is an infirm child or sickly old crone. Some ex-soldiers and madmen join, and the fighting elite of the Chorus form a clique known as the Scarlet Furies. Barik is too dismissive by far, but he's right that most recruits are novices pressed into service. Most will not survive the first few battles. Those who live will have experienced the lead. Those who fall can easily be replaced. What sort of magic does the Chorus use? The Blood Chanters are the mages who follow the voices of Nerat. Like the Chorus itself, their order is not steeped in tradition and antiquity, rather, built on knowledge stolen from other guilds. Their fire magic earns them a place on the battlefield, but they also have chants that stir the mind and the heart. The motherless sods have spells that can bolster a man's courage, or tap into his fears. If the Chorus is a mob, how is it led and supplied? The voice of Nerat gives orders to his elite commanders, who in turn send instructions out to the gang captains. But beneath that hierarchy, it is chaos. Whole gangs will break from the larger force and disperse back into their homelands. The Chorus is inefficient beyond words, and yet more bodies keep coming in to replace those lost in the mess. Inefficient. Every weakling lost in the shuffle is one less burden to those in the choir still dancing to the song of battle. Our ways must be harsh, otherwise the stupid and soft will inherit the chant. The Chorus has a lot of mouths to feed, so the conscripts that can't or won't fight are made to gather food and water. Else, I'm told, they're fed to the pigs, becoming food and water, in a sense. Barik shrugs. A fine contrast to the honor, efficiency, and decency of the Disfavored. The Legion demands courage and tenacity, but provides us with good iron and does not leave its soldiers to forage like vultures. Back to my previous questions about the Scarlet Chorus. How do you think the Scarlet Chorus convinced so many Tearsmen to join? It began with Siren. She had a song that got whole villages marching to her will. And once these peasants killed their neighbors or cousins in service of the voices, it either hardened them into warriors or broke their mind for servitude. Lots of criminals and drifters joined the Chorus too. It seems like the scum of their tiers just need the promise of glory and sanctioned debauchery to turn on their neighbors. It's not pretty, and it shouldn't be. The Chorus is a forge. All the dirt of the tiers goes in, and the finest bits are refined into weapons. Are there many that join the Scarlet Chorus because they wish to join the winning side? It's a shame that such patriots were not born to proper northern stock, too weak or too slight to be disfavored. The Scarlet Chorus is their best freedom from fealty to the younger realms. Not everyone has the fortune of gaining Tunan's favor. Yeah, better that the Tearsmen serve Kyros in some capacity than have them rot in mass graves. They'd be best served slugging grain for the Disfavored, but you're certainly correct. Even the loveliest Tearsman deserves the chance to serve, even as fodder for the front lines. Alright, enough about the Scarlet.
Let's move on to another matter.
Alright, what can you tell me of the Tears? Uphill both ways and full of dumb sods. I learned some history and training. I've been here for a few years, but I'm no expert. What is your assessment of the local forces? There was a time early in the war when I would have feared the younger realms working together. Imagine that. He chuckles. Once I saw the modest scope of their defensive, I knew they would be easily outclassed. They couldn't even rally their best to make a competent stand. Tell me of the Vendrian Guard. They used to be the Queen's Royal Army of Vendrian. I guess defeat inclined them to a shorter name. We crushed them back in 429. I'm proud to say I took part in the decisive battle. You know the rest. A year after we thought them conquered, thousands of Vendrian Oathbreakers murdered the garrison and declared themselves free of the Overlord's rule. Tell me about the Unbroken. The Unbroken Union of Stalwart. May they rot in the decrepitude of their fallen realm. Barik squeezes his gauntlet to a hard fist. Much as it pains me to admit it, in all the realms of the Tears, The Unbroken have been the only foe worthy to meet the Disfavored in battle. The Unbroken Legion was the proud and accomplished army of the realm of Stalwart. Citing their victories as evidence of skill, they prided themselves on never facing defeat while fighting on home soil. After the Edict of Storms tore apart Stalwart and twisted it into the Blade Grave, barely a 20th of the Unbroken's former strength survived to continue the war against Kyros' forces. The Unbroken value tradition, just as we do. Stalwart has never lost a war on their own soil, a reputation they take quite seriously. It is fortunate that Stalwart has poor relations with all its neighbors. The rest of the tiers will not come to their aid, so as bravely as they fight, their end is inevitable. What can you tell me of the Bronze Brotherhood? Mercenaries from the free cities. The course needed extra muscle, and you can always mint new rings. Hard to believe the tiersmen turn on each other for more loops of metal. The Bronze Brotherhood worship the Scourges. Yes, those monsters from the old walls. The mercenaries are grown adults that willingly admire a magical abomination. Read into that what you will. So the Bronze Brotherhood is a mercenary company from the free cities dotting the tier's southern coast. Many of these mercenary companies were employed by Kyros' agents and slaughtered during the war. The Bronze Brotherhood survived thanks to their relatively safe posting at Lethian's Crossing, where the Voice of Nerat hired the company to help protect the town's forge operation. Among the most trained and dedicated warriors of the tiers, the Bronze Brotherhood have a reputation for ruthlessness and tenacity. Aggression and decisive thinking are so highly prized by the Brotherhood that the violent enigmatic Scourge is the group's mascot, a creature most decent folk consider the stuff of nightmares. The term brother is used for mercenaries of both genders, as the company's title harkens back to the archaic notion of living as men. In Tier's custom, this amounts to releasing all claims to lands. To better assure an employer that the Brotherhood won't covet the realms they're paid to protect. That said, it should surprise no one that the Bronze Brotherhood eventually wanted more than just rings, and turned on their contract. Kyros now considers them an enemy, which is for the best. The Overlord needs a better class of combatants.
Go on, Fatebinder.
What do you know of the Younger Realms? Before we marched on the Bastard Tier, I recall Graven Ashe giving us a speech as we stood assembled at Fort Reputation. He told us that the Younger Realms lacked the sense to make a stand against us. I don't think I need to point out that the average tiersman is just plainly inferior to the sons and daughters of the North. For every one of ours they kill, we must drag a score and a half bleeding into the soil with us. It didn't help that they were afraid of magic, and relied on their battlefield prowess to stage a defense. And what do you know of the Beastmen? They drilled us on Beastmen combat before the invasion, but it did little to prepare us. The local savages are lacking in brains, hygiene, and the ability to arm themselves. Yet the prime hunters of their species are formidable. Aside from being rapacious killers, the Beastmen make good haulers and laborers, once you've killed the half that won't follow orders. Enough about the tiers. You seem like a more than capable fighter. I trained with a spear and shield in my youth, but gave it up the day I earned Disfavored Iron. I can still throw some accuracy, but it's a challenge these days. He knocks twice on his helmet. Why? Are you interested in a sparring session? Show me how a northerner would impale a wild boar. It would be my pleasure. This is a traditional hunting technique, but I have used it a time or two in the arena. 5 two-handed weapon skill ranks. Cool. Barik demonstrates a clever move with a spear where he feints, baits the enemy by dropping the defense, and follows through by extending the weapon in a graceful plunge. He executes the maneuver several times, and you're taken aback by his grace. When you are finished, Barik looks out onto the northern horizon in thoughtful silence, saying no more. Now, what is it you have on your mind? What do you think of our circumstances? The edict left little room for confusion. A representative of the Overlord must breach Ascension Hall before Kyros' Day of Swords, and must assume death is the price of failure. We should assist the Disfavored in their siege preparations. as only the Legion should take the Wells-fortified citadel. I wouldn't wager a wooden ring on the Scarlet Chorus impressing anyone but the vultures. What are your thoughts on me and my deeds? Any reservations I have aside, your military record speaks for itself. You're a two-nonce Fatebinder. My opinions on the matter don't come into it one way or the other. Or another. I'm having a hard time reading. I keep just throwing whatever word I think is going to go there in before actually reading the word. What do you think of our travel companions? I am more accustomed to traveling in the company of soldiers, so I'm out of practice judging the worth of civilians and miscreants. If you had anyone in particular in mind, I'll give them some thought. What do you think of Verse? I try not to. She's a force of chaos, an agent in the voice of Narat. Taking her into our confidence can only lead to ruin. And yet she is a capable fighter. For the time being, I'm confident that you can trust her to serve your interests, and rely on her skills on the battlefield. She may even offer some useful perspective on the war. Cool. Well, we are done. Did we lose? What am I looking for? Here we go. Alright, we're getting there. A little fear, but mostly loyalty. Alright, I'm gonna call the episode here. I think that. Let me double check everything.
You look as
real
if you have
fast.
something. What can I do for you?
At your service. What do you need?
Alright, I'm gonna call the episode here, and the next one we will head to another location. To the Scarlet Chorus camp, and see what's going on over there. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Hope to see you guys in the next one.